The first spark hit without warning. Nolan Vay's workshop shivered with a sudden jolt as the tiny dragon toy in his hands sparked violently, sending arcs of electricity across the metal workbench. Sparks danced like fireflies in the dim light. The smell of ozone filled the air. Nolan yanked the toy back, twisting his wrist, trying to stop it from short-circuiting and igniting the stack of flammable circuits beside him. His heart pounded, adrenaline cutting through the fog of exhaustion. He had been repairing toys for decades, but this one was different. It wasn't just a child's plaything. Its scales were polished metal, but underneath, strange veins glowed faintly with a soft blue light, pulsing almost like a heartbeat. Nolan's brow furrowed. "Where did this even come from?" he muttered, wiping sweat from his temple. A sudden shadow flickered across the ceiling. It moved fast, too fast to be human. Nolan froze, senses alert. His first instinct was to duck, but he held his ground. Whoever, or whatever, was up there had sharp eyes. He could feel it. The toy emitted another spark, sharper this time, nearly burning his fingers. Nolan's mind raced. He yanked a small lever, diverting power away from the circuit board. The sparks died down and the dragon toy went still, its faint blue glow dimming to a gentle shimmer. A small payoff. One small victory. He glanced up. The shadow had vanished. Nolan exhaled slowly, but a chill ran down his spine. Something was watching him, and it wasn't human. The shop was quiet, but the faint hum of the city beyond the reinforced walls reminded him he was not alone. He leaned closer to the toy, adjusting the alien crystal at its core. The crystal was unlike anything he had ever repaired before, smooth, warm to the touch, and vibrating faintly under his fingers. He could almost feel a mind inside it. A sharp crash from the backroom startled him. Parts and tools tumbled to the floor as if an invisible hand had knocked them over. Nolan spun toward the noise, wrench raised. Nothing. Just shadows. His pulse raced. He knew instinctively the toy's strange energy was not contained to his hands. It was reacting to something beyond the shop, something unseen. "Okay," he whispered to himself, crouching near the bench, eyes scanning every corner. "Let's see what you're hiding." His hands moved skillfully, repairing a broken gear with calm precision despite the tension crawling through him. Every movement mattered. One wrong turn could fry the toy, or worse, attract the watcher. Then a soft glow reflected off the glass window. Nolan froze again. Outside, for just a heartbeat, he saw it. A long, serpentine shape moving with impossible grace. Its scales shimmered in faint rainbow hues, eyes like molten gold. The figure paused as if assessing him. Nolan's mind raced. Was it friendly? Dangerous? Why here? Why now? The dragon toy vibrated in response, almost alive. Nolan's hands shook slightly, but he forced himself to stay steady. Carefully he aligned the crystal, sliding it into place. The toy's eyes glimmered, and it emitted a low hum as if acknowledging him. A small payoff. His knowledge, his patience had worked. But the watcher outside didn't move. It stayed, silent and immense, and then vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Nolan's chest tightened. Questions swirled in his mind. Was the creature real? Was it dangerous? Was it drawn to the toy or to me? He realized he could not simply finish the repair and ignore what had happened. He had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple toy. He checked the toy again, noting faint scorch marks and small flickers of blue light pulsing through the veins. The energy patterns were almost intentional, deliberate, like a code waiting to be understood. Nolan's instincts told him this was not a toy built for amusement. It was a signal. Another crash echoed, louder this time, near the rear entrance. Nolan whipped around. Tools clanged to the floor again, sliding across the cement. The hair on his neck stood on end. Something wanted his attention, but it was careful, measured, unseen. He swallowed, forcing himself to remain calm. Nolan had faced dangerous circuits, rogue machines, and unpredictable alien tech before, but nothing like this. He understood, in a deep, instinctive way, that the watcher outside, whatever it was, had intelligence. It had chosen now to observe him. The toy's glow pulsed faster, reacting to the presence. Nolan's mind clicked. If he could finish the repair, maybe he could communicate or at least stabilize the situation. Carefully he adjusted a tiny gear, and the dragon toy sprang to life, flapping its tiny metallic wings, eyes glowing brightly. A small, tangible success in a sea of uncertainty. And then, as Nolan exhaled in relief, a shadow fell across the shop floor. Not a trick of light. Not the city hum. Something massive, taller than any door, moved silently across the room. Nolan's heart leapt, and a cold thrill ran through him. He knew with absolute certainty that whatever watched him from above wasn't just curious, It was waiting. And it wasn't leaving. Nolan's pulse pounded in his ears as he watched the shadow shift across the workshop floor. His first thought was to grab the dragon toy, but instinct told him not to make sudden movements. The Watcher, whatever it was patient, calculating. The faint hum of the toy's crystal grew stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat, syncing with his own. He crouched low, examining the alien core once more. Sparks had settled, but the toy's internal circuitry flickered unpredictably, almost alive. Nolan could feel the energy thrumming under his fingers, responding to the unseen presence. He realized that whatever waited in the shadows was connected to it, and maybe, just maybe, to him. The shop's main lights flickered. Then, with a sudden burst, every toy on the shelves, small drones, mechanical insects, miniature vehicles, activated at once. They moved erratically, bumping into each other, their lights flashing like a warning. Nolan leapt forward, quickly shoving a falling drone out of the way. Sparks flew again, and one of the drones skidded across the cement floor, nearly striking a stack of delicate circuits. "Not today," he muttered, sweat running down his temple, and grabbed a heavy tool to redirect the rogue drone. His hands were steady despite the chaos. One misstep, one miscalculation, and half the workshop could go up in flames, or worse. But he refused to panic. Humans thrived under pressure, he reminded himself. Improvisation, intelligence, courage, that's what got him this far. The dragon toy vibrated violently. Nolan realized the drones weren't acting randomly. They were reacting to it. He crouched closer, tapping a sensor panel on the toy. A soft, melodic tone emitted, harmonizing with the erratic lights. Almost instantly the drones slowed, aligning in a loose circle around the toy. A tiny victory, a small payoff that proved his actions mattered. The Watcher must have been influencing the toy, but now Nolan was learning to influence it in return. Then came a sound that froze his blood, a low, resonant rumble from above. The ceiling shuddered and dust rained down. Nolan's head snapped up. A massive shadow pressed against the skylight, a sleek, serpentine silhouette, scales glimmering faintly in shifting colors. Its eyes reflected the shop's dim lights like molten gold. The Watcher had returned, closer now, and it was enormous. Nolan's mind raced. He knew running wouldn't help. The creature had already observed him. He couldn't risk angering it. He had to act. Carefully, he adjusted the alien crystal's position and touched a small activation switch on the toy. The wings flapped, sending sparks and tiny gusts of air. The Watcher froze mid-motion, watching. Nolan held his breath. The toy began emitting a soft glow that pulsed in time with the Watcher's shimmering scales. It was as if they were communicating, not with words but with light and energy. Nolan's heart soared slightly, another micro payoff. He was learning the rules of this strange game, bridging the gap between human and unknown. A sudden crash from the backroom yanked him from the moment. A pile of tools had tumbled over, clattering like a drum roll. Nolan spun, wrench in hand. Nothing moved. Then he saw it. A small mechanical drone had been pushed into the wrong position, blocking a vital circuit. Sparks shot across the floor. Nolan lunged, pressing a metal plate against the arc, grounding the electricity. His fingers burned slightly, but the toy stabilized. The Watcher moved again. This time, it hovered near the entrance, its massive head cocked, studying him. Nolan realized something frightening. It wasn't just observing. It was testing him. The creature's presence amplified the toy's energy, making every misstep potentially catastrophic. But it also meant that every correct action had greater impact. His courage mattered. His intelligence mattered. His calm under pressure could save lives, maybe even bridge worlds. Nolan's eyes darted to the back wall. He saw small scorch marks where the energy surges had touched, singeing shelves. The toy pulsed faster, and the drones shifted again, almost like nervous children. Nolan smiled slightly through his fear. He was making progress. Small victories mattered. Patience mattered. Understanding mattered. He crouched next to the toy, adjusting a tiny gear while the Watcher lingered, massive and silent. The room's lights flickered in response to the toy's crystal, casting eerie shadows that danced like living beings on the walls. Nolan's hands were steady. Every adjustment, every tap had a direct consequence. He was learning to control chaos. He was human, and humans thrived in impossible situations. And then the Watcher moved closer, dipping its massive head into the shop. Nolan's breath caught. Its scales shimmered closer, brushing against the skylight, and for a brief instant, he could see its eyes fully, intelligent, patient, almost reverent. His mind raced. This was no ordinary creature. It had power beyond comprehension, yet it hesitated. It was waiting. watching, judging. The toy's crystal flared brightly. Sparks danced across the floor. Nolan instinctively raised his shield, a small metal plate, but the watcher did nothing. Instead, the light from the toy's core reflected in its eyes, and for the first time, Nolan felt something else, a connection. They were communicating. Not with words but with intent, curiosity, and energy. Then, without warning, a loud metallic bang erupted from the shop's main power conduit. Sparks flew and the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Nolan's heart pounded in his chest. The toy's blue glow was the only light, casting long, twisting shadows of drones and tools on the floor. And in the far corner he saw it, a massive shadow moving closer, silent and unstoppable. Nolan's mind clicked. The watcher wasn't leaving. The toy was only the beginning. Something larger was coming. And then the crystal in the toy flared again, brighter than ever, as if calling something. Something answered. The darkness pressed against Nolan like a living thing. The shop's lights had failed, leaving only the soft, pulsing glow of the dragon toy. Every shadow seemed to move on its own, the scattered drones frozen in odd positions as if waiting for a signal. Nolan's fingers trembled slightly, but his mind was sharp. Humans thrived under pressure, and now more than ever he needed to act. He crouched low, placing the toy on a raised workbench to keep it safe from falling debris. The crystal at its core throbbed like a heartbeat, faster than before, as if it had sensed the presence of something massive. Nolan reached for his toolkit, shaking slightly. The tools clattered, but he ignored the noise, focusing on the delicate mechanisms inside the toy. Every movement mattered. One wrong adjustment could trigger another surge or worse. Then it happened. A soft ripple of light spread across the room. The shadow that had been hovering in the corner, the watcher, moved closer. Its massive, serpentine body shimmered faintly, scales reflecting the toy's blue glow like liquid metal. Its head tilted, studying Nolan, and for the first time he noticed the intelligence in its eyes. They were not predatory. They were curious, patient, judging. Nolan swallowed. "Okay," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Let's see if we can understand each other." His hands moved carefully, adjusting the crystal's orientation. He noticed faint patterns in the pulsing glow, tiny flashes of energy that repeated in irregular sequences. Almost like a language. His mind raced. Could it be communicating? A sudden bang from the back of the shop startled him. A small drone toppled a stack of metal plates. Sparks flew. Nolan acted instantly, catching the drone and redirecting the sparks safely to a grounded metal sheet. The toy shivered in his hands, responding to the sudden motion. Another small payoff. His decisions mattered. The watcher shifted slightly as if approving. Nolan's pulse quickened. The patterns in the crystal's glow were growing clearer. He tapped the small panel, sending a quick pulse of energy back. The toy responded immediately, flashing in a rhythm that mirrored the watcher's movements. He gasped. It wasn't just reacting. It was signaling. A code. A message. The watcher was teaching him. Or testing him. Then, without warning, the watcher moved fully into the shop, its massive head looming over the workbench. Nolan froze, heart hammering. Its scales rippled with colors he had no words for, and its eyes locked onto his. For a terrifying instant he expected the creature to strike. But it didn't. Instead, the crystal in the toy flared brilliantly, bathing the room in pulsating blue light. The watcher recoiled slightly, then leaned closer again, almost reverently. Nolan's breath caught. You're not here to hurt me," he whispered. "You're watching, guiding?" His words were barely audible, but the watcher seemed to understand. Its tail flicked once, sending a tiny drone tumbling harmlessly aside. Nolan realized the creature was not a predator. It was intelligent. It was sentient. It had chosen to reveal itself to him, and only him. He crouched lower, studying the patterns in the crystal. They were more complex than any code he had ever encountered. Symbols shifted and repeated, forming shapes that suggested maps, positions, even instructions. Nolan's mind clicked into overdrive. This was more than a toy. It was a beacon. A signal. Something meant to attract the watcher. A sudden vibration rattled the floor. The watcher's body tensed. Nolan glanced toward the back of the shop. Another crystal, smaller, hidden beneath a pile of parts, began to glow faintly. He recognized it instantly. It matched the main toy's energy signature. His heart leapt. There's more than one. This isn't random. I'm part of something bigger. The watcher's eyes narrowed. Its gaze fixed on the smaller crystal. Nolan understood in a flash. It wasn't just observing him. It was waiting for him to connect the dots to take the next step, Every surge, every spark, every careful adjustment had been part of a test. And now he was ready. He reached for the smaller crystal, moving with precision. As he lifted it, the toy's light pulsed furiously, bright enough to cast long, twisting shadows across the walls. Nolan's hands shook, but he held steady, aligning the crystal's edges with the main toy. Sparks flew briefly, then died down. The pulsing light steadied, forming a synchronized rhythm. The watcher leaned closer, and for the first time, Nolan saw the full extent of its form. Massive wings, folded carefully against its body, shimmered with impossible patterns. Its tail curled around the workshop columns, brushing gently against the walls. Its head lowered, eyes locked with his, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. Not a growl. Not a threat. A greeting. Nolan's chest tightened with awe. He had faced impossible machines, deadly circuits, alien tech, but nothing like this. He was small, human, fragile, and yet, in this moment, he mattered. The Watcher had recognized his courage, his intelligence, his calm under pressure. It had chosen to reveal itself because he had earned its trust. And then the micro cliffhanger. A sudden vibration shook the entire shop. The floor plates rattled. The toy's crystal pulsed violently, projecting a faint holographic image into the air. Nolan's eyes widened. It was not just a code. It was a map. A location. Something, or someone, was waiting for him beyond the city, beyond this workshop. The Watcher's gaze sharpened. It nudged the toy forward, almost expectantly. Nolan understood immediately, this was no longer just a test. The adventure was only beginning. Something vast, ancient, and powerful had chosen to reveal itself to a human. And it was waiting for him to take the first step. He took a deep breath, chest tight with anticipation and fear. One wrong move now could ruin everything, or worse, anger the Watcher. His hands hovered over the toy, ready to act. The energy in the shop thrummed louder, and the shadows flickered like living beings. Then, without warning, a sound came from the skylight above, a low, resonant roar that reverberated through the concrete walls. The Watcher's eyes glowed brighter, wings flexing, and Nolan realized, with a chill running down his spine, that he was no longer alone. Something bigger was coming. And whatever it was, it had already found him. The roar shook the shop like an earthquake. Nolan's heart slammed against his ribs. The Dragon Watcher above flexed its massive wings, sending a gust of wind that rattled tools and scattered papers. Sparks flew from the toy's crystal core, reflecting in the creature's molten gold eyes. Nolan didn't hesitate. Survival required action, and humans thrived under impossible odds. He darted forward, grabbing a metal plate to shield the toy from falling debris. The crystal's hum intensified, pulsing in chaotic rhythms that echoed through the room. The Watcher's eyes followed every movement, and for the first time, Nolan felt the weight of its intelligence pressing down on him. This wasn't just observation, it was judgment. One wrong move and the consequences would be catastrophic. The shop's ceiling trembled. Dust and broken tiles rained down as the Watcher's tail lashed against the walls. Nolan ducked instinctively, rolling to avoid a jagged beam. His pulse raced, but he steadied himself, eyes locked on the toy. The pulsing crystal was their only bridge, the only connection to this ancient being. If he lost it, everything would escalate beyond control. He reached the bench and carefully adjusted the alien crystal, aligning it with the smaller core he had discovered earlier. Sparks erupted as the two energies connected, forming a halo of light that filled the room. The drones scattered briefly, then stopped, hovering in organized chaos, responding to the sudden harmonization of energy. Another micro payoff. His precision was working. But the Watcher wasn't calm. Its roar vibrated the air, and Nolan could feel the resonance through the floor. It flared its wings, tipping over a shelf stacked with spare parts. A cascade of metal and glass fell toward the toy. Without thinking, Nolan dove, catching the dragon toy in his arms and rolling to the side. A sharp edge grazed his shoulder, cutting through his jacket. Pain flared, but he didn't stop. Humans endure, he reminded himself. Humans act when others freeze. The Watcher's head dipped lower, massive eyes narrowing. It made a low, almost musical vibration. Nolan realized it was reacting to his courage, his willingness to protect what mattered. He clenched his jaw and took a deep breath. There was no time to hesitate. The energy surging from the toy was reaching critical levels, and if it overloaded, the shop, and perhaps more, would be destroyed. He scanned the room. A heavy metal conduit ran along the wall, thick enough to handle the excess energy. His mind raced. If he could redirect the crystal's energy into it, he might stabilize the surge, but doing so meant standing directly under the Watcher's enormous head. One misstep and he could be crushed instantly. Nolan's eyes met the Watcher's. Its gaze held a strange, unspoken acknowledgement. He was ready. Steeling himself, he darted across the room, holding the toy aloft and jammed the conduit into place. Sparks cascaded, arcs of electricity jumping from the crystal into the metal pipe. The Watcher tensed, wings snapping, tail lashing, but Nolan held his ground. Every second counted. The crystal's pulse began to harmonize, a bright blue light filling the shop and reflecting in the Watcher's eyes. Nolan felt a tremor run through his body. The energy was immense, almost unbearable, but he maintained control. His courage, intelligence, and determination had turned chaos into opportunity. Humans could adapt where others would falter. Then came the emotional beat. Nolan whispered softly, words barely audible, "I don't know who you are, or why you're here, but I won't let anyone or anything be harmed. Not tonight." The Watcher tilted its head. Its roar softened into a low hum. The connection was undeniable now. The creature sensed his empathy, his moral compass, his determination. The drones whirred in synchrony with the crystal, forming a protective barrier around Nolan and the toy. Sparks danced across the room, but the energy flow stabilized. Another payoff: the human mind had tamed something far beyond ordinary understanding. But the Watcher was not done. Suddenly the skylight above shattered. Light from the night sky streamed in, revealing the full scale of the creature. Its wings spanned nearly the width of the shop, scales glittering like liquid metal under the flickering light. The roar returned, louder, vibrating through the walls and floor. Nolan stumbled back, nearly losing the toy. His shoulder throbbed from the earlier cut, but he gritted his teeth and pressed forward, forcing the last connection between crystals. The Watcher lowered its head, eyes locking on him with intensity. The energy from the toy flared once, twice, then steadied. A shock wave of light filled the room, pushing Nolan against a wall. His vision blurred, ears ringing, but he could feel it, an unspoken acknowledgement, a bond forged in courage and empathy. Humans could act when logic alone failed. Humans could shine when faced with unimaginable odds. The roar subsided. The Watcher hovered silently, massive wings folding against its body, gaze still fixed on Nolan. He could feel the creature's recognition, respect, and perhaps even curiosity. The toy's glow settled into a steady pulse, perfectly aligned with the Watcher's energy signature. Nolan exhaled slowly, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He had survived. He had acted. He had proven himself. But the micro cliffhanger hit before relief could fully set in. A distant vibration thrummed through the floor, deeper than anything from the shop. The Watcher's head twitched, wings flexing. Nolan's stomach dropped. Whatever had been awakened by the crystal, the ancient, powerful intelligence watching him, was not alone. Something larger was moving beyond the city, drawn by the energy. The Watcher's golden eyes locked on Nolan once more. A single, almost imperceptible nod, acknowledgement, or perhaps a warning, sent a chill down his spine. Humans could shine, yes. But this was only the beginning. Nolan tightened his grip on the dragon toy. He had stabilized the immediate threat, earned the creature's trust, and survived impossible odds. Yet deep down he knew the next challenge would be far greater. Something was coming. Something he had never imagined. And it had already found him. The workshop was quiet now. The hum of the dragon toy's crystal had slowed to a gentle pulse, casting soft blue light across the walls. Nolan's chest heaved, sweat dripping from his brow, but the immediate danger had passed. The massive Watcher loomed above, wings folded carefully, eyes glowing faintly with intelligence. It had not attacked. It had observed, tested, and finally, acknowledged him. Nolan lowered himself to the floor, cradling the toy in both hands. Its metal wings flapped softly, a tiny heartbeat echoing through the hum of energy that now seemed calm and harmonious. The Watcher's gaze never left him, yet there was no menace in it. Only curiosity, respect, and perhaps understanding. He breathed deeply, trying to make sense of everything. The toy was no ordinary mechanism. The small, glowing crystal he had discovered in the back of the shop wasn't a toy part. It was a signal, a beacon, and maybe even a key. And the Watcher? It wasn't just a creature. It was something ancient, sentient, powerful, and it had chosen to reveal itself to a human. Nolan's hand brushed the toy's crystal, feeling the vibrations in sync with the Watcher's energy. A surge of warmth ran through him. He realized the connection was mutual. The toy had called the Watcher, yes, but it had also called him. Somehow, in his curiosity, courage, and skill, he had answered. The small victories, the careful adjustments, the moments of calm under pressure, they had all mattered. Humans could shine, even when faced with unimaginable power. The Watcher shifted slightly, lowering its massive head to meet Nolan's eyes. Its golden gaze seemed to pierce into his mind, yet there was no fear. Instead, he felt a strange reassurance, as if the creature recognized the human determination and moral compass that guided him. Nolan straightened, a small smile tugging at his lips. He had survived, and more importantly, he had proven himself worthy. "Thank you," he whispered softly, not knowing if the Watcher could understand words, but compelled to speak anyway. The Watcher tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion, almost like a nod. The crystal on the toy pulsed once, bright and steady, a signal of acknowledgement. Another micro payoff, a tangible confirmation that his actions had achieved more than survival. Nolan stood, still holding the toy carefully. The shop was littered with tools and broken parts, but he barely noticed. His focus was on the Watcher, whose massive form now hovered near the skylight. The creature's presence was overwhelming yet serene. It was clear it had no intention to harm him. The immediate threat was over, but the connection remained. A soft vibration thrummed from the toy. Nolan glanced down and saw the crystal forming subtle patterns like a map. He knelt to study it, heart quickening. The patterns were more detailed than before, showing locations, coordinates, and symbols that hinted at other creatures, or other Watchers, waiting beyond the city. He realized that the adventure was far from over. This was only the beginning. The Watcher's tail swept gently across the floor, nudging a fallen drone toward him. Nolan caught it instinctively, feeling a surge of responsibility. Whatever this being was, it had chosen him as a bridge, a caretaker, or perhaps even a messenger. The weight of that realization pressed down on him, but he welcomed it. Humans thrived on challenge. Humans rose when faced with the impossible. For a long moment, Nolan and the Watcher simply regarded each other. The hum of the crystal filled the room, a rhythmic pulse connecting them. Nolan understood now, the toy was more than a signal. It was a test of intelligence, patience, courage, and compassion. And he had passed. Then the Watcher moved, slowly ascending toward the skylight. Its massive wings unfurled, casting a mosaic of shimmering shadows across the walls. Nolan's heart leapt as he realized it was leaving, but the connection remained. The toy glowed faintly, humming a final, harmonious pulse. A message lingered in the energy: this is only the beginning. Nolan's eyes followed the creature as it disappeared into the night sky, scales glinting like starlight. The shop was silent once more, but he didn't feel alone. The bond was enduring, intangible but unmistakable. He had faced impossible odds, tamed chaos, and shown courage, intelligence, and moral strength. Humans could shine, even in the presence of something beyond comprehension. He sat back, cradling the toy and letting his chest slowly calm. The scars on his shoulder throbbed, but he barely noticed. His mind was alive with questions, plans, and anticipation. Somewhere beyond the city, other Watchers, or other mysteries, were waiting. The toy's crystal pulsed softly, a reminder that his journey was far from over. A sudden flicker of light caught his eye. A small projection from the crystal displayed a symbol he hadn't seen before, a faint, shimmering mark that pulsed in rhythm with the Watcher's heartbeat. Nolan's eyes widened. It was an invitation, a call, a new challenge. He knew instinctively that the adventure would demand everything he had, and more. But humans thrived on challenge. Humans rose when faced with the impossible. He stood, determination solidifying in his chest. The toy was secure, the immediate danger past, and the connection to the Watcher remained. Nolan's mind raced with possibilities, the map in the crystal, the coordinates, the hints of other beings like this Watcher. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. He had been chosen not just to survive but to act, to learn, to shine. And somewhere out there the Watcher was waiting. A soft hum pulsed through the toy, stronger now. Nolan smiled, gripping it tightly. Whatever came next, he was ready. Humans could rise to impossible challenges. Humans could face the unknown and endure. And Nolan, he was just getting started. The map in the crystal flickered again, this time showing a distant point far beyond the city, glowing with faint blue light. Nolan's pulse quickened. He felt it deep in his bones. The real adventure was only beginning. And whatever waited there, would change everything.